Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I'm going to be reviewing another book on Japanese woodblock prints, and this one is Rankafu, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and is Orchid Print Album. This one has three authors: Stephen Kirby, Toshikazu Doi, and Toru Otsuka. So these are the authors here. I'll obviously put them in the description below if you want to follow up on them. And I really just checked this book out because the cover was absolutely gorgeous. I loved the orchids on the front. I don't really know a whole lot about orchids, but I know they can become really intricate and detailed, and I also liked Japanese woodblock prints, at least the books I have read up to this point. I read one with Yoshitoshi, I read a couple on Hakusai, and then I read one that was just general woodblock prints of Japan. Those reviews are all on my channel if you want to see them, but let's dive into Rankafu, shall we? So this book really follows a specific series of woodblock prints that were commissioned more or less by a man who is very interested in orchids. So there's three key players in this story, and their names are Shotaro Kaga, who is a wealthy man who discovers that he has an interest in growing orchids. And something that I really respect in this book is the single-minded pursuit of one hobby or one interest to an extreme degree. So Shotaro Kaga loved orchids and really devoted a lot of his life work to orchids, which I can kind of appreciate the level of dedication it takes to maintain focus to one interest for so long. So he is kind of the one who has this interest, and he pulls in two other people to assist him with his interest. And that is the orchid grower Kenkichi Goto. Kenkichi Goto is kept on to grow these orchids. I'm assuming he's doing a lot of the like hybrids that they're talking about, but he's in charge of taking care of the orchids. And as he develops this impressive collection in this greenhouse that he had built, he winds up turning to a watercolorist, Zuigetsu Ikedo, to do some renditions of the orchids that he's been growing. And he also has a collection of carvers and people who are doing the woodblocks to do the actual woodblock prints for his collection. So he wanted to kind of preserve or capture the beauty of his orchids, and and by him I mean Shotaro Kaga wanted to capture the beauty of the orchids for the ages, I guess. And with the work of his grower, he had grown these beautiful orchids, and he employed these artists, particularly the Zuigetsu Ikedo, to depict the orchids. So that is kind of the collection, or the story behind how these orchids came to be. The book is kind of set up with a couple chapters at the beginning discussing our key players and what happened. It doesn't take up a huge section of the book, but it is worth reading just to know the story behind what happened. Then we get into the actual wood block prints themselves, which I will show you some of my favorites in here. But something that I really liked is before the banker, the Shotaro Kaga, committed to depicting orchids as the woodblock prints, the traditional Japanese art of woodblock printing, he actually tried a couple different other methods first, and he was leaning more towards something that came out of the Western world initially, but he didn't really like the results because he had such a demanding perfection for the art that he was going to be doing. And as a result, he found that after trying all of the other methods, he realized that woodblock print was actually a very good way to depict. And I do agree. I think that the prints that were done in woodblock print, he included some that were done with the watercolor. So you can tell the watercolor ones because they're different, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find some. He also has some just pictures, but the woodblock print, for whatever reason, just captures the essence of the orchids really, really well. And I do agree with the Shotaro Kaga that was the superior way to kind of capture these beauties in bloom. If you're not really familiar with the woodblock process, this book has a really good description of how these woodblock prints are done, and I would recommend reading that section because it really explained it in a way that no other book up to this point has explained it. It goes step by step, and it also shows you pictures of people doing the steps, of artists doing these woodblock prints, so I think that's really, really helpful. He did, as I said, settle on woodblock as the superior medium, so that's what most of these are done in. There are a couple photographs and a couple watercolors, but it is primarily the woodblock prints. So a couple of my favorites I just wanted to show. This one here I liked. This is the kind of book that I would definitely recommend purchasing just because I feel like if you have people over to your house, they're definitely going to want to flip through the book, and it's the kind of book that you want to go back over again and again because you can spend as much or as little time looking at each picture as you want. Another thing that was mentioned in the portion that talked about woodblock prints was how many or how demanding of an art it is to get this much detail in a woodblock print. And after reading that, it becomes even more impressive to see the level of detail that was put into each one of these prints. This one here, like if you look at just the level of detail included in these prints and think about how they could get that out of a woodblock print, you really start to appreciate the level of skill that was required from these artists to do this. And yeah, I'm very impressed, and you can spend as much or as little time with this book as possible. I actually went to add this book to my Goodreads, and I noticed that no one else had reviewed this book, and I'm surprised for that reason because this book is not getting the love that it needs. Look at the beautiful print this is. I feel like just the collection of prints, the information at the beginning, it all just comes together nicely, and I'm just really surprised that no one else is reading it. These two are probably my favorite. I really like these, especially this one. This one's probably my favorite in the whole book, and we have one more on page 233. This one here. So as you can see, there's a wide variety, and a big chunk of the middle of the book is just those woodblock prints, and all them collected with the information from the beginning will give you plenty to look at and enjoy. However, there was a second part at the end which I also really liked, which talked about restrikes, because due to the nature of woodblock prints, you still have all the prints, so you can theoretically, if you still have all the blocks that were used to make the original prints, you can run these again, and these they were calling restrikes. So back in, I believe the year was 2005, they found a couple of the old masters who were still living and still working in their craft, and they did a restrike on the prints. And I think this was really, really interesting because it was a unique opportunity. As now we've advanced 15 years beyond that, there's not really the capability because the art has been lost, or the people who did these arts so well at this level have since passed away or retired. So this was kind of a unique opportunity to restrike these old arts and or these old prints and see them again in fresh light. There's a lot of time spent discussing the reprints and all the work that had to be done. Here's an example of the different ways they had to I'm not going to use the right word, the blocks they had to use to achieve these prints, and they do show the results of some of these prints, which I thought was really, really impressive. And you can see you can appreciate the level of detail and the craftsmanship that had to go into creating these restrikes. This is in chapter 9 back here, and they do include a list of the people who did the restrikes, if I remember correctly. Yes, right here. So if you're interested in them or looking any of them up, they are right here. Overall, I would give this book a 5-star. It was beautiful. I highly recommend purchasing because I think it's the kind of thing you're going to want to go back to again and again. I really enjoyed this book, and I'm surprised it isn't getting as much love as I think it deserves because it was a fun book to read. It was a great book to look through. It clearly described the woodblock process, and I like the restrike section at the back, which kind of was a respectful reflection of this art that happened at the beginning of the 20th century, taking it into the 21st century. It was just a really interesting blend for me, and I really liked it. So I do recommend this book for anyone interested in woodblock prints, arts, just anyone who's interested in looking at beautiful pictures, which is most people. I do recommend it. If you have any thoughts or comments on this video, I'd love to hear it in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of